Welcome back to part 2 of our video series Introduction to Budgeting as part of the Financial Literacy and Wellness Badge Program with the UNLV Graduate College and presented by US Bank. In part 1, we discussed some of the basics of creating a budget, and here in part 2, we're going to dive a little bit more into some of those common mistakes and how to avoid them. Jason, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Hirano. Budgeting can be hard, especially when you're busy with school, work, and trying to make time for family and friends. We'd like to think it's easy to make all the right decisions, but we're much more complex than that. There are common mistakes people make, so let's discuss a few so you're better off prepared to avoid them in the future. First, let's discuss overgeneralizing. Often, a budget has a category bills, without defining what those bills are. To avoid overgeneralizing, make meaningful categories in your budget to reflect your life. For example, if you spend a lot of money on supplies at a pottery hobby, you want to add that category into your budget. Next, there's hindsight. Now, while looking at past expenses can help you form a budget, you don't only want to look backward at what you have spent. You also want to look to the future and figure out what is coming up. You want to include your budget for things like holidays, birthday gifts, savings goals, and that friend's destination wedding in Hawaii. Think about what's coming up so that you can be prepared when that time comes. Then we have unrealistic targets. Unrealistic targets are a very common mistake that many people make. For example, it's probably not realistic to set a $10 per month gas limit if you spend a lot of time driving to school and work. Avoid setting unrealistic targets by looking at your old bank statement to see what is realistic. If you spent an average of $120 on gas over the last 3 months, that would be a good target to set. Then we have budget creep. It's common to mindlessly add small subscriptions or small purchases daily without including those in your budget. It's fine to spend money on those, but remember that they do add up. So make sure that you have specified an amount in your monthly budget for these expenses. And then lastly, we have tunnel vision. It's another common mistake to only look at the price tag of an item and not consider any other costs that come along with it. For example, when you want to buy a car, don't only consider how much that car will cost. Also think about all the other expenses like insurance and gas and maintenance that come along with it. My favorite example is buying a family pet. Many times we look at this cute little puppy and we forget about all those extra costs like food, toys, and vet bills. So please, please, please consider the overall cost of a new purchase before buying it. Dr. Hirano, what is one common mistake you see most often with your clients?
Jason, I think one common mistake I often see is budget creep. Like you said, when we're talking about pets and we're talking about things like that, making that new pet box subscription service. Maybe it's a makeup subscription service. Maybe it's just a new streaming service. Sometimes we get too easily adding these little things to our monthly budget and we don't even think about it. As you do go back and review your budget and your payments and your purchases, this is a great place to kind of find a little bit of money back into your budget. I often like to say, finding what subscription services you may be able to remove or eliminate. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Dr. Hirano, and I love that idea. I know that I have a lot of subscription services that I probably need to get rid of myself. I probably have 20 different streaming video services now. Now that we understand some common mistakes people make, let's talk about tips to help keep you on track. The first tip is using a budgeting tool. Check if your bank has a budgeting capabilities within their app. There are also great budgeting tools online that will help you create a budget and stay with it. This way, you can quickly set, manage, and achieve budgeting goals right from your phone. The next tip is a commitment device. A commitment device is a concept of making decisions now to put limits on your behaviors in the future. For example, an accountability partner can help you keep you on track. Then we want to prioritize our needs versus our wants. Your needs are things such as shelter, food, water, and insurance. Want the things like have the latest technology, that new smartphone, going on a shopping spree, and going out to eat at expensive restaurants. Make sure you're prioritizing your needs before you spend money on those wants. Then we want to make sure we're always practicing mindful spending. Mindful spending is about proactively planning how you will use your finances and thinking before you make a purchase. Then lastly, we want to make sure we create friction. We want to remove friction from good habits and add friction to bad habits. This means make it easier to do good habits, like setting up automatic payments to pay your bills, and add friction to help break bad habits. A good example is removing that one-click spending to make it harder for online shopping. This is just a brief introduction to budgeting. For more information on this and other financial topics, please refer to the link attached to this video. Dr. Hirano, what would you recommend someone add friction to break bad habits?
Thanks, Jason. We previously talked about removing friction to making things like paying your credit cards off a little bit easier and creating some good habits. Here we want to talk about creating friction to actually also break some bad habits. One thing people often do is take money from their savings account and quickly move it over to their checking to make a purchase. One way we can create friction is actually by moving that savings account over to another financial institution, which makes it a lot more difficult to then move that money around from account to account. We really hope that in this series that Jason was able to share some great information. You're able to take that budgeting information and apply it to your life. A couple of things I want to ask you before we finish up today is, what are some common mistakes that you often fall for? Is it overgeneralizing, budget creep, or one of the other 8 common mistakes? Secondly, what changes can you make to help avoid these mistakes in the future? We hope that this series was very helpful to you, helping taking budgeting and applying it to your financial wellness. Thank you for your time.